Greeting friends around the globe. First of all, let me pay homage to the Triple Gem, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, and respected Venerable Mahasangha around the world. And also like to say greeting to everybody who is watching. The Cambodian Buddhist Monk Society in USA, we are organizing this Buddha Sasana English program for the sake of propagating the Buddha's teaching widely across the globe, and especially for the sake of those who do not understand Khmer, to better understand about what the Buddha taught. And I hope that through our weekly Dhamma discussion in English, it would bring more understanding about Buddhism, engage with Khmer tradition and culture to the world, and to also to the Khmer community in foreign countries. So today we have come up with another very interesting topic. Actually, we have been discussing from week to week concerning with the 5 Buddhist precepts. And it is actually a basic principle for all Buddhists who practice Buddhism. And I believe that many of us are aware about the 5 precepts, but some people do not really understand in depth or in detail what it means to be, refraining or avoiding from killing, from taking what is not given, from sexual misconduct, from telling lies, and from enjoying the intoxication and so on. So today we have the opportunity to invite 2 Dhamma speakers to join with us today. First, we have Most Venerable Kassapa Hikko Kamara, lies from the Cambodian Buddhist Vipassana Turiak Buddhist Center of the Kingdom of Cambodia, located in Udong, Kanda Province. And Venerable is also graduated master degree in Buddhist psychology from Sri Lanka, and he is also the executive director of the Cambodian Buddhist Center in Sri Lanka. And also nowadays he's engaged a lot in the meditation training to a lot of Cambodians as well as foreigners, both physically and also the virtual platforms. As we are very honored to have Venerable joining with us today. And again, we have invited Sister Suthiri Yim, and she is also very accomplished psychologist who has a lot of very vast experience in giving mental health counseling, healing trauma, reconciliation through the survivors of Khmer Rouge, and also the peacekeepers as well as the peace builder. So I just want to make it short that she has a lot of experience with mental health, with the counseling, with psychology, with peace building, and so on. So it is very great honor today that we invited her to join, so we can discuss in depth about the 3rd Buddhist precept entitled as the no sexual misconduct. The Pali phrases as Buddhists usually chanted as Kamesu Michachara Veramani Sikha Badang Samadhiyami. I undertake the training rule or the precept to abstain from committing adultery and sexual misconduct. So now I would like to understand the meaning of this 3rd precept that is usually recited by all the Buddhists around the world. Let me turn this very first question to Most Venerable Kassapa to explain about the 3rd precept as it usually chanted. So Venerable, please explain a little bit what does it mean when this precept explain about refraining from sexual misconduct. So according to Buddhist perspective, what kind of sexual intercourse that considered to be wrong or to be misconduct? Please have explained based on Buddhism.
Yeah, so first of all, let me pay my homage to the Triple Gem. Dear Venerable Sirs, respectfully Venerable Munipoto Soktivi, the moderator, and friends in the Dhamma, and Sister Suthiri, the co-speaker. Well, the 3rd precept, the translation goes as Venerable Soktivi mentioned earlier. I undertake or I observe these third precepts not to engage in any kinds of sexual misconduct. And the Pali, we call it Kame Sumichachara Veramani Sikha Padang Samadhyami. Before dissecting what kinds of women are not allowed to have the sexual intercourse with you, you have to understand the two concepts in the third precept. I mean, it comprises in the 5 precepts. The first one is Veramani. Okay, Veramani kinds of abstinence. Abstinence, restraining yourself from the sexual misconduct. And there is another term that we call it Samadhyami. And the noun of the Pali is Samadhana. It means observance or undertaking. So according to Buddhism, just restrain or abstraining yourself from the sexual misconduct is not enough. You have to engage something opposite from that. That means you have to build up the fidelity, faithfulness, respect, confidence, a good relationship within the family. And I mean, mentally, you have to cultivate more kindness, compassion, equanimity towards your partner. That is why we have to develop in the opposite of the sexual misconduct. Just like, okay, I have the contentment with my wife, with my husband, so I don't go, in search of any from someone else. So that is enough. No, that is not enough from the Buddhist perspective. You have to build up something opposite to that misconduct. Okay, so let's move to the. So what kinds of women, like surprisingly, the third precept discusses only about the types of women which are not allowed to have intercourse with. There are no any types of men are described. But let me and I will interpret why the precept discuss in that manner. Okay, so according to the Majjhima Nikaya, and there are many discourses talking about that. Let me read for the clarification. He is given over to misconduct in sexual desire. He has intercourse with such women as are protected by the mother and father, brother, sister, relatives, and who is engaged or has the husband. So according to Buddhism, you are not allowed to have sexual intercourse with anyone under the protection. It can be protected by the father, by the mother. In the society, that is why specifically Buddha didn't mention that by the parent, because sometimes she is raised by the single mother or single father. And so when she is under the protection of her husband, you are not allowed. Not only that, because some girls are not under the protection of the parents or husband, they are under protection of brother, her own sister, or auntie or grandma or grandpa, and so on. So simply, in short, anyone who is under the protection, or we can say who has the honor, it can be the husband, whoever has the honor, you are not allowed to have the sexual intercourse.
Even the partner, right? Is
even
the partner included here?
Sorry?
Is the partner also included here, right?
I'm not getting your question.
Yeah, I mean, like you're talking about those who have like the female or lady who has the
Right.
owner, but beside the owner is partner. Being the partner is
Correct.
also included, right?
Yeah.
I may I interrupt?
Yeah,
I note some words. I note some words because there are some words I feel like it's wrong to use it. For example, the owner of some, like someone owns someone. That's not the right word when we talk about the modern relationship.
I mean, this is the term used in the scripture. But why I used to honor? Because you are owned to someone, and it's mean like, yeah, you might feel it's weird, but when like, I mean, I'm talking about both sides, that you are belong to someone. I mean, you are like, it's
like in relationship, right? In relationship.
It's relationship, and like
relate.
Yeah, you are related to someone, and it quite weird that we use that. It's kinds of we use it a treasure, that she is a treasure.
It's an object.
Because let me, I'm not against that, because I know that, because the technical terms mostly came from the Western world, like objectification, like when you use that term, that you are objectify the woman, that is why we don't use that. But let me move beyond that, because I used to honor, because there is a story of the prostitute, and she make it as her living, and she I mean, I'm sorry to use the word, because it is in the scripture, that she I use the word faithfully observe, I mean, offer herself to anyone who give her the money. And but she observed the third precept. And how she did that? Okay, the story goes like this. Okay, one man came to her, and he suggested and gave her the money. So it kinds, I'm sorry to use the word, like kinds of booking or making a reservation. And she had been waiting for him for 3 years without accepting anyone's suggestion. But on a very final day, she said, she went to the king. She asked that, I have been waiting for this man, and she gave me this much of money. So king, I cannot survive anymore, because I cannot depend on this much money. So what should I do? The king said, okay, you don't need to wait for him. You can continue your job as usual. But when she left the palace and she was waiting for someone, and a new man came to her, and just starting talking and sharing, and like it, and she was about to accept that man, but suddenly she saw the man is coming back. So she said, no, I'm sorry, I don't want you, because my man is coming. So like, and then she went to the monk, and she asked, did I break my rule? The monk said, no, you did not break your rule, because at a very final point, you did your best to observe it. And the thing is, even that man give more amount of money to her, if she is so faithful, and if she is so honest to her dignity, like observing the precept, no, she will not engage. So that is why I use the word honor, like, and because we have another conflict in our society, and the word that monogamy and polygamy. So that is why we use the word the honor, that she is owned to someone. Okay, so this is how Buddhism interprets the third precept. And let me move that. We have been talking only about the women, but this precept is related to the man also. Even there is a huge misunderstanding that third precept is about stealing someone's wife, about stealing someone's husband. No, it's not about stealing, or it's not about only wife and husband. It's beyond that, because in Buddhism, like only having a relationship as a girlfriend or boyfriend, like in Buddhism, we recommend so much. Importantly is about conserving your dignity, because it's not about man or woman. It's about your dignity, and not to let yourself engage more in desire. I mean, in sexual desire, and you can do it when you are legally. I mean, this is what mentioned in scripture. You are legally allowing to do that. That is the marriage. That, I mean, everyone must know that you are now is someone's, we call it, yeah, treasure. So from that, I mean, when the entire society accepts that marriage is properly appropriately arranged, then you can have, I mean you can yeah, making love. So that is the point of Buddhism. But we have more. If you have question, we can continue. So that's all from me, Venerable Sokti.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing from a Buddhist perspective, actually from the Buddhist Vinaya, the disciplinary rule set down by the Buddha for the lay Buddhist practitioner. As we are aware that the 5 precepts is not for the monk. Actually, the monk have more training rules, like 227 training rules to be practiced. And basically, this 5 precept is like the basic principle for all Buddhists to practice, so they live a happy life. I think we have to understand the purpose why the Buddha laid down this rule as a training rule for us. It's not just, you know, to restrict us from enjoying the sensual pleasure or to be in relationship with somebody. Why the Buddha so sensitive about others, you know, relationship, if we look from the negative point of view, but actually he was just concerning about the welfare, the happiness of the many, not just thinking about himself, because other approach Buddhism, approach his teaching to live in order to find happiness. So it is one of the way, you know, in which it leads us to be to live a happy life, right? When we can engage in a lawful, happy, healthy relationship. Like when we use the term owner, traditionally, according to our Cambodian culture, it's not something weird, but maybe to the world of, you know, the Western or the Europe world, it may be strange. You know, owner, unless it is like it is made on paper, or you know, it engaged with wedding or marriage or some kind of you know, agreement between the 2 persons or the family. But just to be girlfriend or boyfriend, sometimes, you know, but in Cambodian concept, we always think that, okay, this person is mine, is my girlfriend, is my boyfriend. It expressed their stinginess, actually their selfishness. When they have a relationship, they don't open to it, and they just, you know, keep it restrict and being selfish to their relationship, and can sometimes lead to you know, violence, leads to you know, fighting between each other as well. But let me turn this question to Sister Sotiri. I know you very expert on this matter, especially on the gender-based violence and the, you know, relationship. It also concerned with the concept of peace building, right? When the relationship doesn't go well, it's not healthy, so it will create war, right? War between individual is not a way to peace. So let's hear from your perspective, from your experience. How do you explain the concept of sexual misconduct? You know, what kind of sexual intercourse that considered as a, you know, misconduct according to a social perspective?
Thank you so much. Before I answer the questions, I'm sorry, I don't know why my throat today is. Before I answer these questions, I would love to ask back to 2 of you, especially to learn, not to argue, but to learn more. Especially, I hear a little bit from you that this precept, the third precept, is more about the happiness of many others, but not because you mentioned dignity. You mentioned dignity, and I was like, well, is it because he does that because of the dignity of someone, or is it just again go back to the words virginity. How does that involve in there? Is it this precept create for that reason or not? And when you mentioned protected, you said such a word, like you said, such a woman, it's a protected woman, mother, sisters, a spouse of someone. Do you mean that like you, like the precepts itself advise or teach people not to have sexual intercourse with these women in the family or another family? I'm afraid I missed that part. And also the word owner, I'm very mindful about wording itself, because you mentioned already, Paong Suktivi, the words leads to violence. If you feel like you own someone, you feel like you have full right to do everything on her, about and him. Yeah. And when we talk about owner, if we have times, I would also think about discuss about dowry. Does dowries also relate to owning someone? And I prefer to, even a relationship, a spouse or a partner or boyfriends and girlfriends, I think we should change the word from owner, to use the word owner instead of owner, to commitment. When you engage with someone, this is a commitment in there rather than owning someone. I still feel like sacrifice too much. I still feel that. Okay, so you want to answer me first, or I'll answer first about sexual misconduct? You decide.
Let me finish what your question that you has raised about. What I forgot the question that about.
Protected. You said no sexual intercourse.
Okay.
With such a woman. Okay. What does that mean, such a woman?
You know, anyone, like you are correct. If even within the family, even okay, for example, that you are, I mean, you are married to someone and you are living with, like, your sister-in-law, your auntie, your mother. I mean, to be honest, it's a very broad topic. And when I listened to a TED talk given by an Indian lady who had been raped for 100 times, and she shared very shocking story, and thing can be happen, and she rescued thousands of girls who were raped by her own father, uncle.
The incest.
Yeah. So and even in Sri Lanka it happened. So that is why, I mean, physically, I mean, from my understanding, because Buddha was a omniscient and he knows everything, he can see the future and he can see the past. So to protect, I mean, to be honest, not to let the man who has the bad desire to do that. So that's why he prepared the rule for every purpose, that you are restricted. Because when it comes to family, it's kind of a boundary that especially for the men, not to break the rule. And because, you know, it is in India, in Cambodia, I mean, to be honest, psychologically, the girls, I mean, women have the desire, but she doesn't have so much, opportunity to express, because, you know, that this is the pressure, and it's because, you know, that I'm a mother, I am a woman. So, I mean, she can, that is why women has, you know, women have kinds of, I mean, a great tolerance, a great patience when it comes to the sexual desire. But there are some cases, but I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about, that is why specifically Buddha laid that precept for the men, and because within the family and outside the family, as long as the woman is under someone's protection. That's all.
Yeah. Let me add to that. We have actually 20 types of women that the men should avoid, you know, engaging in sexual conduct, because actually in the past time, the history of India is very complicated, you know, in terms of sexual relationship was so complicated that it led to, you know, the promulgation of this rule for the sake of humanity in their society. You know, it was so complicated. And so let's use another word, you know, like the lady, which he also already used the word owned by other, because in the concept of traditional Indian, you know, sometimes we don't really understand into depth because they have, you know, different caste system. So even the lady who is under their guardian, under their you know, what to say, breadwinner, or sometimes they are the you know, the servants of the rich family. So any man who you know, made sexual relationship with that lady without permission from their owner, because in Indian concept, as you see, that some servants are totally owned by their boss, you know, not in such today's world. So it's a little bit complicated.
Slave.
Yeah,
Actually, it's a slave.
yeah, like a slave, let's say. But I don't want to use that big word. Okay, you can go ahead.
No, thank you. No. I don't get me wrong. The words, I totally understand you. The word owned or slave, those words were used in the old times. When I speak about this, I just don't want to bring the misunderstanding to our listeners, to our audience, that I just want them to distinguish between that's the past, that's the old words. But now, feminist movement, we try to analyze each word, and we try to change or to move. Yeah, so I don't refuse those words from you. It was there, and those words which were used relate a lot to gender-based violence as well, and I'm going to share this under your questions about sexual misconduct. Thank you. So sexual misconduct is I would say it's an umbrella term. It's a broad term that is like that's include a range of behaviors or statements. It could be coming from small into big, like a criminal case, etc. So it's a broad terms that misconducting actually, like that, and those could include sexual harassment, rape, sexual assault, gender-based, and misconduct there referred to an unconsented or unwanted or inappropriate. That's also could be start from, as I said, could be start from an unwanted touch into rape, which is a criminal case. So it's a big umbrella terms. Yeah, and there I would also love to share a little bit more about the words itself. There's still a lot of confusions between what is sexual assault, what is sexual harassment, what is gender-based violence. That's a lot. We speak a lot in the Me Too movement. I'm sure you heard about the Me Too movement and other movement to fight back sexual harassment or sexual misconduct. A lot of people do that, hashtags, but they don't really understand what's really behind this. And I could understand it's complicated, and it's a lot of nuance between each word. So start with sexual abuse. It's an unwanted sexual activities, like it's an unwanted sexual activity that the perpetrators, and often a lot of case, is perpetrated by men. But I don't want to confuse everyone that all sexual abuse perpetrators are men. Women can be also abused. But most of the case when we talk about sexual abuse, especially to child abuse, we speak a lot about men because it happened a lot.
They
And
cannot
it doesn't
control
mean
their desire, right? Is that the reason, right?
no, I don't think so. I don't think so. When we try to analyze, people has an ability to control, and there's way to control their sexual desire. It's a lot about power, struggling. It's a lot about powers involved, and it's a lot also related to traumas that we hope that the two psychologists here could discuss about the psychological traumas of the perpetrators. But again, the sexual abuse is perpetrators using force or threat, or especially take the advantage of from the victims without consent. There are some form of child sexual abuse here. In Cambodia, I heard a lot when I was working with children, especially the children's street children. They sometimes were asked by an adult man, especially foreigner, to even sometimes to fulfill others' sexual desire by just naked, by just touching, even without sexual intercourse. It's also called sexual abuse.
What about sexual exploitation, like those who take advantage of, can be pornography, can be
Yes,
whatever, yeah,
That's-
business, commercial.
yes, commercials or persuade or bribe, or like, I pay you this good clothes, I pay you for your mother's health, hospitals, so just return me. That's part of exploitations and abuse as well. And assault, a sexual assault is often referred to a context, sexual context. It's an unwanted, of course. What is the word? Non-consent? Yeah, non-consent. Yeah, non-consent. It's often a context and often on physical and physical touch. Assault and harassment. Harassment is even a broader term than assault, and I will give examples to make sure that we can define the difference or the nuance. It's a broad term that includes the types of unwanted verbals and physical sexual attentions. Let me give one example. I was in my own case, and I feel really, really bad. And that's also the history that bring me to really speak out loud about sexual abuse and sexual assault. When I was like, my skin types, I hate this when I speak about it again. My skin types, a lot of people said, "Oh, you are so charming to foreigner. Your skin is so charming to foreigners." Like, there's a lot of discussions and teasing, and I call it harassment. Like, your shape, especially your skin types, is they often say like the word "tropan" is like, what? I don't know what it's in English, but it's the Fey word, something like that. But the word "tropan" is so hurtful to me. I feel like am I a prostitute? Am I a
Like my
sexual?
type, and they said, "Oh, this is you're my type," for example. Yeah.
My type, somehow it's like referred to mentally and up behavior, but
Is it a positive way, right? Not in a negative way.
it's more positive. Like, we can relate to someone. You're my type, so like, can we see? But tropan is very bad for me, and
Like you become an object of sexuality in that regard.
Yes. You're right. Yeah, and that's verbal. That's verbal.
Sexual target. Okay.
Sexual target. That's verbal. And also, when I have tattoos, people come and speak in a sexual way because they think it's an invitation for sex. Like, women having tattoos on her body, they think, oh, she's an easy woman. Come on. So people take tattoos in my body as an invitations, and that's harassment. They text, or they even saying no, even I said no, I said clearly no, it's not an invitation, come on. And that attempts of, again, texting or requesting, that's sexual harassment, okay?
Yeah.
And assault, if I refuse to that man, and he still come and touch me, some part of my body, that's an assault, because I have no consent to that. So yes,
Same
so
as the
I
word
hope
abuse, right? Assault and abuse. Is it the same in this case? The word abuse and assault.
I think abuse and harassment is a bit bigger than assault. Assault is more likely, a context. It's if we put it into a smaller line, like narrow it down, it's a sexual context. Yeah, and it doesn't mean has to be intercourse. It's any unwanted touch. Some people just like pinch you or touch you in a sexual, sensual way. That's also a sexual assault. Always remember that people can do that with consent. That's no more harassment or assault, but all the word we speak about here is a non-consent and unwanted. Yep. And gender-based violence, this is really important, because a lot of international organizations and nationals, NGO as well, what is the word? Not just accept, but speak out loud that this is a huge human rights issue. Unfortunately, a lot of us individuals do not understand it's a human rights issue. That's why a lot of people still commit gender-based violence. And gender-based violence means an harmful act on individuals based on their gender. And when we talk about gender, it's like you are male, I am a female. That's we have different sex. But gender, you can be monk, I cannot be monk. That's a gender statement here. So the role that the society give to us, a woman should just stay home, because she's a nurturing mother. She should be just at home and taking care of kids. That's gender that people put on our sex identity. And examples of gender-based violence include honor killing. Honor killings that happen a lot in India and Nepal. I have been working as a consultant for a United Nations women in Nepal for a few projects, and I've been researching and working a lot on the suppressions and the social norms pressures on women. So honor killings is one of it. Another one that was been serious is called Chaupadi. Chaupadi is a form of gender-based violence as well, that woman during her period, her menstruations, she has to separate the family, the society and the family has to separate her. They have a cottage outside the house. They believe that this is the dirty times in her life, that that's like a bad karma to her having periods, and it give a bad curse to the families. She is not allowed during her period. She is not allowed to touch a plant. She's not allowed to touch her family members. Anything in the house is not allowed to touch when she has periods. So that's why they separate her in a cottage a bit far away from home. There's a lot of killing there in terms of an accident, nature accidents, for example, the snake, or live in a very bad hygiene. That's forms of gender-based violence, because people harmed her because she has periods, because she is a woman. Also, when we talk about honor killings, I also could relate that somehow there are still culture, society and culture that if you are, if your husband die, is it called the widow? Is that the word widow? If your husband die, you are not allowed to get married to another one. I don't know, but I also call it a gender-based violence, because why do you need to restrict someone's life just to devote for a death? Also, female genital mutilations, that's happened a lot in African country. Nigeria is one of the still happening. Females genital mutilations, because I think it's who create this rule is men, because they don't want women to feel sexual pleasure. Yeah, that's another form of gender-based violence. And sexual slavery, child marriage, forced abortions, and forced marriage. These are forms of gender-based violence. And another word, I don't want to explain it, but just to speak it loud, there is even the word that's called femicide. Femicide. That you heard the word homicide, so femicide, like women are being killed because she is a woman. That's still happening a lot. And child marriage these days, a few years ago, I have worked with colleagues in one of the country, I forget the name, but close to Russia. The man has a right to go into the house and arrest the young girl to marry him. This is also a form of gender-based violence. That's why I said, and many others, international organizations said it is a serious human rights violations. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing great detail from a social perspective, and I could learn a lot from listening to you, and especially I caught up with I caught the word like being consent, because it relates with the intercourse. It should be consenting, and in addition to that, based on Buddhist perspective, in this regard of the third precept, it is not just about being consent from individual part, but that's why this third precept is laid down, because we have to respect the rights of the owner. We have to respect in the marriage, fidelity, honesty, and faithfulness in your partners, and the family members as well. So okay, let me turn this to Venerable Gaspar. Actually, I just want to remind the audience that, because some audience might happen to come across the live show and listening what these monks are talking. Why they're talking about sex? They are monks. They're supposed not to talk about sex, So I just want to clarify that we are discussing about the third precept, even though it is not a training rule for Buddhist monks, but it is a training rule for lay Buddhist practitioners. Because some people still not understand this in depth, they sometimes they wonder why the Buddha laid down this as a training rule. What is the benefit of observing this precept, and what happens if we break this kind of precept? We commit sexual misconduct, and we violate the rules. We also do not respect in the marriage of other, or the family, or the just in this case, I would like to turn this question to Venerable Gaspar. Can you explain a little bit the reason behind it? What happens? Why the Buddha laid down it as a training rule for Buddhists to practice? Is it necessary? Yeah, micro. Yeah, can you unmute yourself?
I'm sorry. Something pop up in my head, but I forget. I'm sorry. Then just to add something more, like just an idea to elaborate and to support.
Sorry, it seemed to get frozen. Okay, Venerable Gaspar, can you hear me?
Frozen and hope disconnect.
I hope not power cut. Okay, okay, maybe Sister Sakari, yeah, maybe you can continue talking, sharing, about this.
Hello. Okay.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I can hear you back. Okay, please
Okay.
going. Yeah,
Okay.
keep going.
Yeah. Everything is answered. Okay. So just let us dissect back. The main purpose of Buddhism. So the main purpose of Buddhism is to liberate yourself from the suffering physically and mentally. So lust is one of the greatest suffering we have been going through. So in order to liberate yourself, in order to practice as a monk, as a nun, or in order to observe the 8 precepts or the 10 precepts, that the sexual intercourse is totally prohibited, you have to train from the basic level. It means that the baby step must be taken by you. So in order to restrain yourself from not having a sexual intercourse with anyone, even your wife, even your husband, you have to train to be faithful. You have to train to be honest, and especially it's about contentment with whatever you have. This is the training. Even a desire, which is called as the demon in Buddhism, even a desire push you, keep motivating you and telling you that, okay, it's not enough. I have many opportunities. I have my subordinates who working under me. I'm a boss, so I can have student. I can have sick anytime. So it kinds of mentality can arise to the mind, to the mentality of the man. So this is the training. Even admit having the chances to get yourself wrong, or to commit any kinds of transgression. So the thing is, we have to train to be content. You have to be content with your own partner. I'm not talking about the women. I'm talking to both sides. So this is the training. And why we need that? So people have many perspective. To be honest, besides Buddhism, because as I told you, they have, the concept they have been internalized to themselves. If third precept is about stealing one wife or one husband, no, it's not about that. It's about also a contentment. It's about the respect. So when you have kinds of this mentality within the family will be peaceful. Whether how hard it is, you have to be with your wife, you have to be with your husband. So it's a both responsibility. So the first thing is the family will have kinds of a peaceful environment, and you can see, if I'm sorry to say that, sisters, when there is a divorce, when there is a divorce, it's a huge impact on the female, herself and her kids. So it's a natural phenomena. It's a natural law that 99%, okay, when there is a divorce, normally the mother is warm enough, is kind enough, is compassionate enough to adopt, to raise her kids. And no matter, because this is the nature, it happens everywhere in the world. So, and this is another big issue. It happens in the United States, it happens in Europe. So it's a huge it's a responsibility. It breaks social security. It breaks a social, I can say, the peacemaking process. It impacts everything. That is why. And it is socially, but let me move back to the spiritually, because we have to liberate ourselves from that. So this is the training. So if you cannot be content with your own wife and with your own husband, no, you are not allowed to move a little bit, higher level. That is the 8 precepts or 10 precepts, or to be a monk or to be a nun. So this is one point. So hopefully you have anything to add, Venerable Saktivi?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think so far I have been listening to what you explained. This precept is very much, of course, we're talking a lot about the women's side, but actually this is actually the Buddha is trying to teach the man, learning to control their sensual desire and to set themselves a limit, some kind of boundary. Because if we allow our sensual desire to take place, it is endless and it is never enough, right? Humans craving and sensual desire is never enough. That's why when it comes to spiritual practice, the Buddha talk about the 3 kind of demons in ourselves that we have to, get rid of. That is the lust or greed, right? The desire. Our desire is endless. Our craving, attachment is endless, right? We want this, we want that, especially in terms of relationship. For example, for the man, thinking about, in terms of sexual desire, it is endless and it could be very complicated. The nature of human sexual desire is very complicated. So if we don't set boundary to ourselves, so it's gonna cause a lot of chaos to society. In nowadays we can hear the news, the men, raped or commit sexual misconduct even with their own, I don't know if it happened with sibling or their own daughter or in-law, or relatives. So it is such complicatedness of human desire. So when it comes to spiritual practice, I think the Buddha focused very much about learning how to restrain our desire, how to limit ourselves from giving rise to sensual desire, which can put us into suffering, which can lead us to the state of downfall and ruin because of sexual desire and so on. And that is why when we talk in case of the monks, when we become a monk, completely we live a life of celibacy, completely refraining from marriage life. So we have to commit ourselves to walk on that path, because it is a kind of detachment. We learn to detach from worldly pleasure, sensual pleasure, not even to think about that. As a nature of human existence, of course we cannot stop ourselves from thinking in sensual desire, but at least this discipline, vinaya, the code of discipline, protect ourselves from getting into that situation. So thankful to the Buddha for promulgating this rule, so that it gives very much power to our spiritual practice. Okay, let me move to Sister Sotiri. You have anything to add on to that, especially from a social perspective?
When you speak about controlling your desire, you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Because I don't use this. When you speak about controlling your sexual desire, I have a metaphor. I have a picture metaphorically come to my mind that everyone has a dog in ourselves. Everyone has a barking monster dog in ourselves. So it's about how do you protect this dog not to bite others who walk past by your home. So we build the fence. We have many ways, building the fence or lock our dog in a cage, whatever. That's really come into my mind, this picture, this metaphor, when you speak about desire. And everyone has an ability to do. It's nothing that we can say, I cannot do it. It's a humankind.
Because I want it.
Yes, and what's bad is that when we forgive the reason, we can forgive individuals because for different reasons, for healing ourselves. But if we forgive those reasons, that's not good. The reason to rape has nothing to, there is no reason to rape. There is no excuse to rape. Impunity should not happen here. So yes, everyone has to be responsible for this. And especially I love what Venerable Kassapa mentioned about it's a train your mind, train yourself, train your mind, especially train from the younghood, from your childhood. This is a lot about happening from home rather than just expecting society, expecting monk, expecting precept to teach us, but train from home. And that's again responsibility of parents again there. Train your children, boys and girls, to respect women, to respect men, to respect relationship. That is and again, as a parents, you should be the role model as well. And here in talking about the modern society, I'm not saying that divorce or leave the toxic relationship is bad. I encourage people to leave the toxic relationships if they're not getting along, because living in a toxic relationships, that could also abuse, and there are a lot of many ways of abuse in there. So harmful to your mind, to your physical, to your whole mental beings of families and yourself. So yeah, I'm okay, and I advocate for leaving the toxic relationships, and but speak, respect, and not just committing fidelity or adultery just to make that happen, to make the leaving and happen. That's a huge traumas between sexual abuse in or between them, in and after and because of the sexual abuse. That's a lot. That's a lot. I was at the moments listening to you, my heart and my brain was already connected or dissociate to some of my clients when I was working with them, how it affects them individually. And there's a lot of reenactment, reenactments and reoccurrence in their life if they was once sexually abused. Some people say, nah, it's just a touch. But no, it's not. It's not. It's more than that. People think like normalize it like, no, it's just a touch. It's not sexual intercourse, but people suffer it differently. People suffer it differently. So don't take sexual abuse, sexual harassment, and assaults as simple. It is a huge issue. It is huge. It's huge. Yeah. I actually have a question to two of you, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
I found out that that's happened a lot. There are many other countries, but just looking at Cambodian society, we are Buddhism a country. But I see that adultery and infidelities happen a lot, and people like start to think it's normal. It's normal. Like in my case, for example, like people say, nah, that's normal. Why can't you accept it? I was like, no, it's not normal. And I get my nerves when friends talking to me like, come on, girl, this is normal. Why are you so mind about that? And I said, no, it's not. You're normalizing it yourself. That's why this is still happening a lot. So why is it like that? Why? There's still a lot of adultery and cheatings and infidelity happen a lot in this country. Even we are the Buddhist society.
Yeah, let me start first. But I want to add something. In addition to the sexual harassment, sexual assault, sexual abuses, like from a Buddhist point of view, this is where we are getting wrong, that we making billion of excuses to commit some crime or to do something wrong, that we call, okay, the way she dresses motivated me or arouses me, or I mean specifically you have 1,000 billion of excuses to do that. No, it's not about that. It's not something wrong with the outsider. You have to address that is something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you. So, and how strong you are is not about finding the way, finding the excuses to express yourself, to express your emotion. It's about training. And I don't use the word control because it sounds weird that we are talking about the repression or suppression. It's about training. So when it comes to training, you have to train yourself with the right attitudes, with the right thinking. That you cannot say that the women, I mean, that is the misunderstanding, that is the wrong understanding, it's the wrong view, that thinking that woman is the object for us to satisfy, and women is just for the sexual desire. So this is the wrong understanding and totally rejected by the Buddha, because he said that wrong understanding leads to wrongdoing. So when you have kinds of wrong understanding, so, and there is a discourse he told monks to train ourselves that, okay, at the beginning, when you see a woman, you have to think that she is your mother, she is your sister. If it is hard for you to train, you have to practice the fullness of the body, like, and sisters, you know, that you have to separate to 32 parts and see him as the death body. And for what? Why are we doing that? Because we know that something wrong is not with her, it's something wrong with us, that our desire is keep coming up. So that is, we have to understand. That is why I told you at the beginning that third precept is not about controlling or not allowing yourself to have the sexual intercourse with anyone, but you have to train yourself to be content, to be enough, to respect your partner. That is the point that Buddhism try to emphasize us on. So move to a question. Yeah, and this is a huge topic to be elaborated, and I think it happens not only in Cambodia, even the so-called country like United States, that you have the right to do everything
in the westernized country.
So and that's why they make some excuse that, okay, we have to open, you don't need to cover yourself like a Muslim country, or you don't dress short, you have to cover your body. So I mean, even in United States or Europe, I mean, you open everything, and it doesn't mean that your desire decreases. No, it's not. It is totally opposite to Buddhist point of view. It's about training your mind. It's about training your mind. And as I told you, without training your mind, wherever you live, even, to be honest, even you ask the thousands of women, yes, like, I'm sorry to say that, but I'm talking just verbally. I mean, I want to pinpoint the point. Remain naked. You said, okay, I will be fine because I every day see the girls naked. No, your desire is still there. Your desire is still there, because as Brahma Saktivi said, according to Buddhism, our desire is endless, is limitless. That is why you can ask yourself, why doctors still rape their patient? Why, how to call that, delivery, or how to call it, delivery doctor? I forgot the term. There is a technical term for doctor who give a delivery, deliverance to, I mean, giving birth to the baby. I forgot the technical term, but what I want to say, I mean, the male, even the female, I'm not talking about only the male, because I watched a documentary
about the midwife,
about the nuns, even the nuns in the church, even the female doctors or male doctor. I mean, their life is checking the body, cutting the body, see everything there, and giving birth to the baby. They see everything about the dirtiness of the body, but why they still have desire? What I want to say is not about the way they dress. It's not about we exposed to the, naked people or seeing bad things. No, it's about train your mind. So if you don't train your mind, everything will happen. The third precept will be broken easily if you don't train your mind, if you never train to be content, as Sister Sotivi said. So theory said that.
Not sisters of theory.
Yeah, because same name, okay, confused.
Yeah.
So you have to train from the beginning. Yeah, you have to train from the beginning, and that is why even monk we cannot touch. We are not allowed to touch with desire, and this is related to the sexual abuse, sexual assault, sexual harassment. Even the words we cannot use to say something, but we can use the word as yes, I want to say this because there can be misunderstanding amongst our Buddhists that why we are talking about that. Monks allowed to talk about this thing as long as just for sharing, not just arouse someone's feeling or to make someone feeling. I mean, to make someone feel about the sexual desire. So we are just sharing. So we are allowed to talk. So and if you, because even some monks they interpret it very wrongly about talking about that. Because I asked my master, I asked the Sri Lankan master, he said, "Is you are allowed to talk. If you don't talk, how we can understand?" And to be honest, we are allowed to express, and it is allowed in Buddhism. Like for example, if I see, for example, I see you, Sister Soturi, then I say, I have not to talk with you for a few days because I feel not uncomfortable to talk with you. It's like we can express that. We are allowed to express that because according to Buddhism, desire is natural. Let me give you an example. Like, yes, I remember the point. I mean, when it comes to sexual desire, we must train because you have to remember, because the six senses are eating that desire. Okay, because for example, because in the discourses, Buddha said that there is no form that can provoke man mind than the form of woman. So the same thing to the woman. So I mean, the six senses are there. That is why it is so strong. That is why I told you, you have to train your mind, not just to close your eye, not to let others stay naked, because her voice, his voice, her form, his form, I mean, touching everything is there. That is why Buddha discusses about this precept so much. So remember, Soktivi, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think that's a good point when you raised about that. It's just a quick thought pops up into my head about, many people was wondering why the monks are not allowed to touch the lady. They kept asking me such question, and I think this is one of the reasons, like Sister Sotiri was just saying about even touching in a way of sensual assault. It could be the case which leads to sexual misconduct. Who knows? Because sexual desire is unpredicted, right? We know that desire of human is boundless. So that might be one of the way the Buddha learned that if he allowed the monks to touch the lady. So it would be so complicated by today modern world. If we can do so, it would create a lot of troubles in the sangha, in the monks community, if we allow to touch lady. It could happen in any case. So that is one thing. And also Sister Thierry was talking about rape. I think when we relate this third precept to the rape, the amount of rape cases that happen around the world, that might also can be the origin from breaking this precept, right? If every person, especially the man, bears in mind that there is boundary in sexual relationship, not they can do whatever they want or to whomever they want, in this regard. I think this precept, this third precept, is so important that the Buddha laid down for us to restrict ourselves, to learn to train ourselves from thinking over boundary or something. So for example, you see a beautiful woman, and regardless of she has a husband or not, but according to your desire, you just want it to be yours, you want to do it. But if there is no precept to restrain in that idea, you might commit that, you might break that in a moment, so that is why this precept becomes so important. Whenever a man start to think, oh, this girl is so beautiful, this woman is so beautiful, I want to have her, something like that. So if they can remind of this precept, I think they just put the boundary, the fence, to protect themselves from doing that. So this is so helpful, right? The precept becomes so important. I think when Sutiri, if you do the research, like what is the root cause of rape and what are the way to protect the rapes from happening, I think third precept is one of the important from Buddhist point of view. If more people understand this boundary, if more people train their minds to to not let their desire arouse, I think that will be helpful in the rape, to reduce the rape cases. Sister Sutiri, you have anything to add to that?
I still think you can allow yourself to sexual arouse, but not do it to someone else who's not consent. So rather, yeah, you have to. I think we have to accept that. A request. I talking about this training your mind, woman's body, woman's choice. I would love to read one of my poetry if you agree.
Sure. Yeah.
I wrote some of, especially I wrote them during this public order, the law on public orders, like the short skirt. Those times I will share it with all of you here. But before that, I searched for my file. But before that, I really wish that we can have a discussions like this in Khmer one day, because we Cambodian, we need to really speak about this loud. So make it.
Yeah, let me say this. I just want to add, in addition to what Venerable Soktivi added, that yeah, you can add some. I will share with you about how to train your mind. When we see the woman, we have to think that she is my sister, she is my mother. Like, not like it's a training to, because many people make thousands of excuses. Okay, because when I saw her, she I mean, the way she smiled, I mean, the men have many excuses that it's okay for me to have the sexual intercourse with her. No, that is because when it comes to the rape cases, because I was motivated to rape because the way she stands, the way she dressed. So I just want to add to what Venerable Soktivi said, and to help to Sister Sotri, that because you are a consultant to many countries, so you can use kinds of right attitude, how to building up the right attitudes, not to have the sexual misconduct. That's all from me.
Yeah, and from the Buddhist point of view, I was just reminding from the Sister Thierry referring to the Buddhists in Cambodia, why such a lot of inhonesty or something, infidelity happen a lot if we are Buddhist. So actually, Buddhism is not to blame, but I mean, the Buddhists themselves do not understand or do not follow the rules. That is why a lot of insecurity, a lot of crimes happening in our country. So this discussion could be an awareness, alertness to our fellow Buddhists around the globe, that this precept actually seems very simple, but when we break it down, it so much relates to to the social harmony, social security, and also to the peace concept in our society. If the sexual relationship is not good, it's not healthy, it's harmful, it can also cause chaos to society at large.
True, so true, so true. Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. Especially, my questions more like trying to understand, trying to speak out loud, to voice this to others, not blaming the Buddhism. I respect Buddhist principles very much, but a lot of practitioners do not put this into their plate.
Yeah.
They do not put this into their plate. They
know how to recite, even some old people, our grandparents, they go to the temple every, Buddhist holiday, Sabbath day, they recite, they undertake the precept, but sometimes they never practice. How they can practice? Because sometimes they don't even understand the meaning, they just recite the Pali, the Pisabalai, and they don't understand it, they don't know how to practice it. And that's why we want to break it down in detail, so we can know how to practice and avoid refraining it.
That's why I request to have this talk in Khmer as well.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, we can make it in Damika live show in Khmer version. Yeah, 5 precepts would be, I mean, a great topic of all time, right? It is very practical in daily life. If we just have the observe the 5 precepts, it really helps a lot in terms of human rights. We don't even need the the social law actually if we just follow the 5 principles of the Buddha.
Yeah, I remember. You remind me of sometimes during the family gathering, and we invite monk to bless. There is this precept. I don't know what's the word, but some of our cousins, like we make a joke and when listening to monk, like I don't repeat this. I don't repeat this precept because I cannot do it. Like
yeah, like I think Muksa, Veti, or Sura, especially they say some people say, okay, I don't observe the 5 precepts. I want to observe just 4 precepts because I'm still drinking.
yeah, we need to, as I
So
said,
don't
we need to bring it to the plate rather than just something up there in the cloud. Okay, let me share you read this. Oh dear, where is it? Here. I wrote it in Khmer, but I also have a translation in English later. I named called Samput Pirut. It's an offensive, the skirt, the offensive, and I wrote it in Kakate, and I cannot sing, but I can just read. I did that. Give a little bit history to this. I was wearing short skirt to supermarket, and it came this poetry. Sleep clay up sa, pnei nhit praha,ដូចនាងចម្លែក ភ្នែកនោះសម្លក់ខ្លះក្តក់ខ្លះស្រែកឯខ្លះទំពេកមើលភ្នែកមើលសញ្ជ្រុះគ្រាន់តែស្លៀកខ្លីនាងមានខអីមិនដេចមើលចង់ធ្លុះស្ទើរហែកសាច់ឈាមហាភ្លៀមចង់ស្ទុះទៅចាប់នាងឆ្លោះយកនាងតែលាក់តើនាងខអ្វីកាយរបស់ស្រីមិនរបស់អ្នកទោះនាងស្លៀកអីគ្មានអ្វីគួរភ្ញាក់មិនជាអន្ទាក់ចង់ចិត្តអ្នកណា I will read it in English for the English audience. The skirt at the offensive. Very short in the market, hundreds looking at her as if she's an alien. Those eyes stared at her details like a scan machine. Some whistled and some others speak out. And the old head stared, almost dropped his eye. Just wearing short, nothing wrong. Why people staring at her at her like her skirts having hole? Aggressive eye make her feel like you want to tear her apart or wanting to arrest her or lock her in a separate room. What's wrong? What's wrong with those eyes? It is her body. It's not yours. Should you surprise and advise her what she should wear? She wears what she likes and wants to, not to please your eyes. Keep your eyes on, not keep your eyes on you, not her dress. Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I wrote.
I just realized you also a poet, not just a psychologist. So I think that's a great point, which relates with what we were just talking about. Women nowadays, actually, we were to say it, mostly people think women are the target, sexual target, right? They become the object of sensuality of the man. But actually, the Buddha does not blame women, whatever they dress. Actually, the Buddha focused more on how we should train our mind, how we should restrain our six senses, guard the way we see, the way we smell, the way we hear, the way we talk, the way we taste, the way we touch. So all this, the way we think, all the six senses must be restrained and guarded by each and every individual. So we will not give rise to, desire, give rise to anger, give rise to delusion. And that is very much Buddhist practices based on this third precept. Okay, because of the time, I just would like to give the last question to each speaker. Okay, let's start with Venerable Kassapa. Can you give a little bit of, maybe we have been talking a lot about the negative side. Let's talk about the positive side, you know, how maybe providing some ways and method, how can we develop the state of, you know, faithfulness or respectfulness and also fidelity towards not just our spouse, our family, but also to all women, not to regard them as the sexual target or something, but to respect all in general. What are the ways and methods you can share with us?
Okay, so before answering the question, I would like to add, one thing that, yeah, Sister Thierry is here, and you know, I have been in Sri Lanka, and I did some families counseling. So when it comes to sexual abuses, it's not about only happening to the girls, but it also happening to some men also. But it's very sensitive, very critical topic, but we can talk, very openly, not to harm someone, but we want to share someone to understand about this topic. My understanding is everyone must train, especially, to be honest, even I'm a man, but I want to urge that especially every boy must be trained from the childhood how to respect their mom, how to respect their sister, how to respect everyone, especially the woman, and teach them about the precept. It must be started from the childhood. Okay, this one thing. And then my sharing is, I want to say that don't mix or don't misunderstand that love is only about the lust. That is the big misunderstanding. Okay, so to maintain your relationship, you have to integrate something else into that. Okay, you can have lust, it's okay, but you have to add something to that to make that that love is composed of kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. So this is the position the Buddhism takes. He always let the relationship accompanied by the spirituality. You need that. You need kindness, you need compassion, because to be honest, her body never remained the same. To be honest, her body never remained sexy as you saw her at first time. So it can change. So that is why in Buddhism, you must train yourself to be kind, to be compassionate to her. And that is why so my perspective is, you have to be, you have to play different roles when it comes to having a peaceful relationship. You have to be her husband. Sometimes you have to be her son. Respected her as the mother. Sometimes you have to respect her as your friend, can sharing anything you want. And sometimes you have to treat her as your queen, or sometimes you have to treat her as your sister. Not only wife. When it comes, that is my terms, when it comes to kindness, when it comes to compassion, you have to play different roles in order to remain peaceful. In a good relationship, you cannot, because wife, I'm sorry to say that, but okay, wife, it can be at night, but at different time you have to be a father. You have to take care of her, and you have to respect her, and sometimes you have to be her son. You can helping her washing this and so on, all stuff. If you think that you are a boss, you are a husband, no, for me, it's never happened. So this rule can be easily broken when you are big-headed, and arrogant. So that's all from me, Venerable
Thank you so much for sharing some method to practice this precept without break, so it will lead to social harmony and a peaceful family when people are able to practice this precept. Okay, let me give the chance to Sister Satiri to share your last thought about the this precept, kind of refraining from sexual misconduct or from social experience or perspective. How what are some ways and method that we can stay positive about it and not to engage in misconducts. Yeah.
That's a lot, and I totally agree what Venerable Kasapat mentions earlier about starting from home, starting from train your mind, train your kids from young age, and adding that into another way of trainings and looking at the cultural perspective and educations. I would suggest, especially to Cambodian society and to society that still embrace traditions and cultures, and especially embrace the mindset that speaking about sexualities in the family is not good. We should change. We should change. Not speaking about it is not the way to stop it. Actually, speaking about it, it's a better way to stop doing things, especially.
That's why we talk, right? That's why we talk right now.
Yes, that's why we talk right now. Relate to my childhood and many other childhood, I believe that sexual and reproductive health and education was not taught at all. Was not taught at all in my age, at home and at school, because people like avoid it. It's a taboo. It's a uncomfortable topic to speak about, even your mother to your daughter. And that's wrong. And that's wrong, totally wrong. I teach a young girls virtually last night about sex and gender educations. I told them, I share with them that I'm surprised that they're 13, 14 and they already knows what is period, what is menstruations. And I told them that, you know what, you're lucky. At my puberty, I was sitting there and cried. I don't know what happened to me. And this is again just an example of avoiding talking about sexual and reproductive health and education from the family. So start doing it. Teach your children. We know that sexual desire is nature. Do not suppress it, but put it in the tables. Put it in the tables. If you don't feel comfortable, speak about it. You can create a comfortable environment situation to speak about it with your children. Especially these days, it's risk that they are on phone, on tablet. They have access to everything from internet. They can access to porn. They can access to website. So doesn't speak about it. It's not the solutions anymore. It's never the solutions before. It was just an uncomfortable feeling from adults. So in short, speak about sexual and reproductive educations and health in your family, but in a proper age to your kids, not just every age, but in a proper age. And it needs to study, it needs to learn. That's a job of the parents. You can't just get it, but you need to do research. We cannot give an answer how, but because of short periods of time, but do research. Be a responsible parent.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, even though we restrain from teaching them, but naturally they will learn that by themselves. No matter how as people grow up, they learn that. They're not even from you. But so education is always good, right? To bring awareness to people, to let them know, right?
Especially what's bad about those not educated about not educating your children about sexual and reproductive education or health is that as they access to pornography, they don't know that they take it as something just pleasure, but not love.
Yeah.
But not love. Love is missing from that.
I think grams happen from that, right? Rape also can happen from sexual, you know, like the expose of the object that they take it as the object of sex, you know.
Yeah. So yeah.
So thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for both of the speaker for sharing very great detail concerning with this topic, the third Buddhist precept, no sexual misconduct or no committing adultery. And I do hope that our audience who have been following the live show have learned something about the third Buddhist precept. Actually, it is a broad topic to discuss, but I do hope that with this short period of time, we have share. I think it is understandable concerning with this precept. We understand the meaning and the purpose why the Buddha laid down this precept as one of the training rule to train ourselves, to train our mind for the sake of spirituality, as we want to stay detached from the worldly pleasure, the sensual pleasures. We have to learn to let go of some of, you know, the desire which lead us to suffering and which lead us to, you know, insecurity and so on. So if we can observe or undertake this third precept, I think it will give rise to a lot of advantage in society. We also do not give the right to harming, to social insecurity, to violence and rape and so on, if we do practice this precept. So finally, I would like to accumulate merit done from this today's Dhamma discussion. I wish all beings around the globe, may all people around the world be happy, be peaceful, and be liberated from physical suffering and mental suffering. Thank you so much for following our live show. And I would like to also again thank you for Venerable Kassapa live from Vipassana Turya Buddhist Center of the Kingdom of Cambodia, and Sister Satiri Yam live from Phnom Penh, Cambodia, for being speakers for today talk. Thank you so much for joining with us, and I wish you the best of luck. Thank you. Goodbye.